Welcome to TradeTheMBA.com. This is John. This report's for the 28th of August, and I'm going to have to adjust the D Omega here. What I've done is gone through and recalibrated some of the functions in that by removing excess code lines and things like that to help streamline, and also did some adjustments to some of the algorithms. And bonus of that is when on some of the paint bars where we get into some of the more complex configurations, this will speed up processor time in that, so it would just make things faster. So what happens behind is just a lot of lines of code that just I'm going through and adjusting. So should have that completed before we get most of those indicators out for September. But we're continuing to move. I mean, we're almost at 3,500, so we're well on the way to exactly what our expectations were. Nothing has changed at this particular point. Shakeout, though, is getting a little bit extreme on both NQ and on the S&P, and we're within positive extremes. So I'm expecting a little more volatility, particularly as we don't end the month until the beginning of next week. So we might see some volatility in there, but what it's an indication of is the market's satisfied with how the Republican convention went and where the general race of things are. So from that standpoint, they're giving it a thumbs up. Euro bouncing, not a surprise. I mean, again, this is what the U.S. would really prefer, to keep it in that range. And again, as long as the U.S. is still having sporadic openings, the euro is going to be floated, particularly since most of their banks are really in a lot of trouble in that. And so even with their liquidity functions, it's still less than what the U.S. is doing, and proportionally, therefore, it appears to be strong. But that's all. It's an appearance. And you just got to love this oil flatline. It's an amazing thing. Could see a little bit of an uptick from the hurricane, but it doesn't yet look like that's created a significant enough. Because just now, with all of these people staying home, the dramatic reduction in the number of drivers on the streets has really had an impact on how much fuel is needed on a given day, and so that's really caused an impact. And that's going to keep probably just flatlining for gold. Of course, we know there's a few other positive extremes that gold can fill back before making its next run. I think everyone's waiting for a little bit more. September traditionally is the beginning of the campaign season, and that's when people are going to get serious and start to really focus in on it. What we're seeing, though, from an intraday standpoint is it's just beautiful wave action. It's just very clean. Comes down, we get our dip of the orange, we get the power mode 2 crossover. I'm usually looking right there for the shakeout pop going back up. This one did have a dip below the red line, so I would expect to return back to those lows, and that happens a little bit later after a series of DOC spreads, which are marked with our little magenta candles right there. And this one followed through a little bit further to fill back in that dip below the red line, and then we ended up with another dip below the red line, which then was filled with a much higher extreme, and that lets you know that, hey, start thinking about it. Not to mention you get that flat line of the long short algo with long below. And at that particular point anyway, it matches the 23% line. And it was just a matter of waiting for the crossover. And boom, we took right back off to the highs. And then we've just sort of been bouncing back and forth from there. And here we are, right in the middle of it. A little bit of weakness right here at this particular point. Nothing out of the ordinary. We had some positive extremes to below the red line, and it still takes us potentially back down to the 79 range. But we filled back the other positive extremes that took place from the initial run-up that was right about here. And that just happened in the after-hours market. All good stuff. You'll probably receive indicator renewals over the weekend, and we'll be sending those out before the week starts just to make sure that you're all set for a end of the month that happens during the middle of the week. As always, though, trade well. We'll talk again later.